Design principles. In this video, I would like to share with you 3 core design principles that I think will be useful as you think about designing and planning your 4-week learning unit. Now, many of us as online writing instructors don't think of ourselves as designers to begin with, but clearly designing content and making it useful and accessible to students in an online class is kind of a form of design, whether you call it instructional design or information design or course design. It's still a kind of design. And so I want to present 3 very simple basic principles that I find super helpful. And I've been working in college textbooks for, like 20 years now. And a lot of these principles actually come from the world of print design. But they work equally well online. So let's look at them. There are 3 core principles: chunking, layering, and patterns. Chunking is all about dividing information into visually identifiable pieces, whether the information is itself text or visual. It's chunking it and using the page or the space of the screen to control the flow of image and text. It's all about breaking information up to make it usable for students. This becomes especially important, as we will see next week when we get into mobile and accessibility. Chunking becomes even more important when you think about students viewing your course materials on their phones. Layering is the second principle. Layering is all about supporting 2 different kinds of readers. There are grazers and skimmers who want to just skim across the top, and there are deep divers who want to read every word. You're going to find in most classes you will have some of both. So the process of layering involves using headings and summaries to provide information at a glance for those grazers, and then offering detail in text for readers who want depth and detail. And then the third principle is patterns. Establish visible, simple, repeatable patterns and then stick with them. So let's look at some examples in the world of print text design before moving into a sample online course design. So these are some page proofs from a handbook I worked on a number of years ago. It's called the DK Handbook by Ann Wysocki and Dennis Lynch, and it was designed by a wonderful guy named Stuart Jackman, who taught me almost everything I know about design. He helped to put Dorling Kindersley on the map. And when you see books that look like this is Stuart Jackman. Was a brilliant. He's still around, but he's retired. Stuart was a brilliant information designer, and he really taught me these things. And so, first of all, the concept of chunking. Readers need to see where the information begins and ends. Notice on this is actually a 2-page spread. Imagine the gutter or the spiral binding going down the middle of these pages between left and right. But notice there's a main heading at the top left, and then there's 3 columns of text, and each column of text is a self-contained unit. So editing, proofreading, and if English is not your home language, they're all chunked. So you can take each column in at a glance. Again, this is a printed book, but this concept of chunking applies equally well to web design and to online pages in a course website. But the idea is to clearly signal for readers where each section begins and ends. And if you can use white space to help, all the much the better. So how do you accomplish this? Well, you have to break your text up into smaller chunks, obviously, which is harder to do than we think, because again, many of us are trained in this kind of scholarly, essayistic, discursive style of writing. And you will find if you try to chunk your content suddenly, you have to sort of change your style and break your text up into paragraphs. You can see also the use of bullet points to summarize main points and signal that actually proofreading has an introductory sentence and then 1, 2, 3 supporting points and so forth. So that's chunking. Layering is this concept of providing an overview or fast track for grazing and then a deep dive for the deep diver. So in this case, we have this spread on commas have 4 main uses, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is like a snapshot, the 4 main uses of commas. So this is the top level summary page. Somebody who wants to know, I just need to know the basics, I need to know them fast, can skim across these 4 columns and get that information really fast. Then you can dive into comma use number 1. So this page is depth and detail for readers who want more than the basics. So you can see on this page, that left column summarizes in 2 inches of text. Comma use 1, using commas to make numbers, place names, and dates clear. This is the same information, comma use 1, expanded in more detail. So that's a good visual example of this concept of layering. You have the snapshot or the executive summary, then the deep dive. And the third concept then is patterns. Users aggressively search for patterns. If the first unit in your course or your first weekly unit has a pattern, you need to follow that exactly in weeks 2, 3, 4, and 5 to the best of your ability. Make every section, every module, every page, every heading use the same fonts, use the same design, be extremely consistent, because if readers go from page to page and the design changes, they immediately get confused. They're like, wait a minute, this was at the top before and now it's on the bottom. So notice here we have the same exact design, quotation. This is about how to use quotation marks, obviously. You can see as I scroll through the pages, there's so little change. They're so identical. You almost don't, it almost looks like an animation or a flip book, right? 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. Extremely consistent patterns. And these patterns work to reinforce spatial memory. And your readers or your students remember where things are on the page. And that really helps, particularly if you're teaching an intro level course where students are logging in on the weekend and then they're gone for 4 days and then they come back. These patterns and this consistent design principle really helps your students kind of come in, orient themselves, and know where they are right at the beginning. And the result and the happy news for you is you don't get as many emails with students saying, I can't find that assignment. Where's the thing for week 4? What's the, if you establish that pattern, they learn very quickly and your users will catch on, your students catch on of where things are. So those are the 3 patterns, and there's some examples of those 3 patterns in a print book design. Now let's look at a sample course website to see how this works in the practice of the digital world. All right, let's look at how these principles of design can be applied to a live course website. This is an actual course website designed by my friend Amy Cicino, who teaches composition and is a PhD candidate down at Florida State University in Tallahassee. This is her course website. It's designed in Wix, as you can see from the banner across the top. She used the free version, which is why we have the little advertisement across the top. This course is called English Composition 2135, and the title of the course is Genre, Research, and Context. This is basically their Comp 2 course at Florida State, and as she describes it here, it's the second of 2 required composition courses, and it stresses the importance of critical reading, writing, and thinking skills, as well as the importance of using writing as a recursive process. So this is the second semester of their required Comp 1 sequence. And I chose it and got her permission to share this with you for a couple reasons. Number one, I think it's a really nicely designed and fairly simple course website. Number 2 is because it includes multimodal assignments. A number of you have asked about, are schools really teaching multimodally? They absolutely are. And this is, in fact, a good example of, I think, a fairly traditional, not a traditional, but a fairly common model. So there are 3 main assignments in this course. The first one is called the analysis paper, which asks students to write an analytical essay of 1,500 words in which they begin to develop the strategies they will need to rhetorically analyze and use different genres. The second major project is called the research-based digital composition, which asks students to analyze and research and compose a research-based digital composition of 2,500 words that includes no fewer than 10 sources. So this is a major academic paper. Students will complete minor assignments. And then finally, here's the multimodal piece, which I think is a really great assignment. It's called the multi-genre campaign. The third unit asks students to use their research and knowledge and choose a particular message to circulate to a chosen audience across 3 genres. So the students have to actually take the same content and split it into, for example, a slide presentation, podcast, and a video, or a slide presentation, a public service announcement, whatever. But they have to experiment with using different modalities and different types of genres to present the same message. The other thing I want to point out, you could quibble with her font. I don't like the cursive font. I find cursive fonts hard to read, but okay, it's just the title of the page, so I won't quibble with that. But notice how Amy also includes, she has this thing called Power Plugins that allows her live Twitter feed to appear on her homepage. Now, you might be cautious about that depending on the kinds of stuff you post on Twitter as a teacher, because now your students are going to see it. But she does this as part of the personalization piece, right? Now students can see, Oh, my professor is also a human who tweets about stuff. For example, she has a funny one here. I don't know why grad students don't feel comfortable posting on the WPA listserv, said no one ever. If any of you have been following the recent mansplaining debate, there's been a lot of pushback against a few men who have dominated the conversation on that listserv and scared off all the grad students. So anyway, that's kind of an inside joke, but that's Amy trying to personalize her presentation on her site. So that's an overview of what this class is about and how it uses multimodal. But what I want to show you primarily is how she has done these major assignments. So we just identified that there are 3 major assignments in her course. Let's look at how she sets these up. Talk about chunking. You can basically get the entire course on one page. Here's project 1, project 2, project 3. Notice those in terms of our patterns, right? She sets up a pattern, and other than shifting from left to right, identical. You have the project, you have the assignment prompt in full text on the left, helpful resources. These are links, and then these red things are student examples. The little red pencil icons again here. Project 2, student example, helpful resources, and the prompt, project 3. So very good chunking, very good use of patterns. And then as you dive in, you can begin to see, you can download things over here. You can see this little visual. And here is her project assignment. Project 1, analyze the network's attack functions within. Notice the use of red headings, topic, audience, purpose, and my tips to you. Topic, critically analyze the text you consume, what it looks like, how it is made, how it functions, and understand the systems it exists within. It's a fairly sophisticated assignment. Audience, your teachers and peers, and so forth. And then there's these little arrow buttons you can move left and right through the assignment. And here's some additional examples. I'll post a link to this site so you can actually poke around in it at your leisure. But notice too, as we scroll down, she's doing the layering at a deeper level as well. Topic, audience, purpose, my tips to you. Notice the same exact pattern. Her first assignment sheet and her second assignment sheet are identical in terms of their structure. That's very, very helpful. And it also does the layering. Notice these first 3 paragraphs, topic, audience, and purpose, in that much space, a couple hundred words, gives the students the overview. So the student can read that top chunk and have a pretty darn good idea what the project is about. Then you go on to more details. And in this case, the details extend for 4 pages because this is a fairly sophisticated assignment. There's some explanation of fair use and media, more details about the interim projects and the schedules. So there's a lot of detail there, but it does the layering really nicely. Snapshot, deep dive. Snapshot, deep dive. Great work, Amy. And then again down here, project 3, student examples, helpful resources. Same exact process. This is project 3, a multimodal, multi-genre campaign. So again, good evidence that schools are really doing this. This is actually a 2016 course website. And she says here in project 1, you analyze the text identifying its genre creation and circulation methods. In project 2, you created a digital genre. For project 3, you will remediate your P2 claim into 3 different genres and actually distribute it to the intended audience. You will complete your 3 genres in a statement of goals and choices and write 1,000 words. So again, you can look at how she's developed this assignment, but it's a good example of a live multimodal course project being taught in Comp 1 as of 2016. So if those of you, they're looking for some evidence to share with your departments about how this multimodal stuff is actually happening around the country, this is a good model. So that's a quick overview of how Amy Cecchino's site uses chunking, layering, and patterns, and what I think is a fairly effective way. I'm not sure how accessible her site is. It may need some work on some of that stuff, but generally, in terms of the design principles, I think this is a very effective model and captures a remarkable amount of information for the students in a pretty short amount of space. So I'm grateful to Amy for giving me permission to share this walkthrough and to give you the link to her site so you can explore it. Okay, those are the design principles. Thanks for listening.